So just to let you know, the chat will be saved and this will be recorded. So important to know that for everyone. If you want to get clock hours, do be sure that you copy and paste that bit.ly link that's in the chat and fill out the form so you can get clock hours. Just a couple of things going over the agenda. We're going to go over the purpose of the tool Google Slides and just talk about the different ways that you can use this tool. It can be used as a presentation tool, and we'll walk through that. That's kind of the most obvious use of it, and honestly, the reason the tool was kind of built in the first place. But really, Google Slides is for so much more. So we'll talk about it also as this project or a student project tool and the way you can use it for students to create. And then we'll also show you how to use it for students completing work and different assignments. So there's that we'll dive into as well. For this meeting, please mute your audio during the presentation. If you have a question, go ahead and direct it to the chat. I'll be monitoring that, and Leanne will be monitoring that as well, and we'll make sure to get those questions answered. Again, the video camera is optional. Important to know that the chat and this session are both being recorded and will be posted online for people to view who weren't here before. So just want to make that super clear. So again, this is the Google Slides session. My name is Jason, and I'm here with Leanne, and we're going to go ahead and launch right into this thing. So I'm going to exit out of here. And ironically, when I'm showing this, it is a Google slide. It's a Google slide deck that you can use in the presentation form. But I'm going to back up and start from the very beginning, just how we get into slides, what is it, and how we can build presentations. So I'm going to go ahead and open a new tab here. And there are what I think of three really good ways to get to Google Slides. The first way, just like most Google products, is when you're on the Google main page, just like google.com, you can click on what I call the waffle menu up here in the top right. And if you can't see that right now, if you just slide the Zoom pictures out of the way, you'll probably be able to see it. And when I click on that waffle menu, you can see that many Google apps open up. And if I click on Slides, that will launch me into the Slides homepage. So that's one really nice way to do it. Another good way to get into Slides is to just use the URL and to type the web address. So any Google app has kind of the same formula for writing a URL. And what that is you take the product, what it is, in this case slides, and then type google.com. So here I can type slides.google.com, and it will take me to the Google Slides homepage. So that's another really good option of how to get to Google Slides. And then the last way that can be really convenient too, depending on your workflow, is if you're in Google Drive, and like I was saying before, the formula for the URL for Google Drive is drive.google.com. So whatever the product is, and then .google.com. So if you're in here organizing files or whatever, you can click on the New button in the top left corner. And this New button is like actually super powerful. There's a lot you can do with this. But one thing that you can do is launch new Google apps. So if I click on that, you can see I can come down here. Oops. Loading up on me, and select Google Slides, and it'll open the Google Slides presentation that I can start working on right away. So three good ways to get there: the waffle menu, or the URL slides.google.com, or through Google Drive. So for now, I'm going to go ahead, and now that I'm here, this is kind of the home page. You'll see that it has all of the presentations that I've had opened recently. So I can go back in and start editing those really quickly. It also has some templates that I can work from. And to be totally honest, I have not really perused the template gallery. I'm sure there's some good stuff in there. I just usually build my own. So if you're considering using the template gallery, definitely take a peek at that, see what they have to offer. For now in this presentation, I'm just going to go ahead and start a blank one. So it'll take a few minutes to load up. And one thing that's really always important to remember with Google Apps in general is that they save automatically, which is really cool. The problem that I run into personally is that if I forget to name it, it just is going to be called Untitled Presentation forever. And I have like dozens of files in here called Untitled Presentation because I've forgotten to name them. So I've really tried to train myself to, when I open a new Google app, to name the thing right away. So this, well, I'll just call it Slides Presentation for Webinar. just anything that really makes sense. And I'm going to walk you through just a few things about using slides for a presentation tool first, and then we'll move into some of the other functions of slides. So when you open a new slide deck, automatically Google gives you this layout. So it wants you to put in a title, it wants you to put in a subtitle, and that's fine. You can definitely use that. The problem for me is that I never really like the one they give me, and I would rather just do my own thing. So I start out just by clicking on the line to highlight that text box and then deleting it, because I really just want to start with a blank slate. And one really neat little feature in Google Slides, as well as any other Google product, is what they call the Explore tool. And the Explore tool kind of hides down at the bottom right of all Google apps. And kids tell me they think it looks like a sparkle. So we'll just go ahead and call it the sparkle. And if I click on the sparkle, it opens up this Explore tool over on the right. And what's really neat is that I can do searches, Google searches right here, and find lots of information. So let's say that I was working on a presentation about George Washington. And so I can just type George Washington into that, and it does a web search for me automatically. So I find a lot of information about him, and it leads me to other different websites. But what I think is really cool is when I click on images, I get images of George Washington that I can include in my presentation. So let's just go ahead and look at this one, and I'm going to click on this plus sign to drop it in. And it takes a couple seconds, but then you can see it automatically drops it in on my slide. Now, one thing that I think is really cool, and it is also like a hidden little feature, is on the top here where it says Explore, there's an arrow pointing to the left. And if I go back just a couple, it'll give me a bunch of different layout options that I can use to make my slide look a lot better. So this top one, it's the full frame, but because the image is kind of narrow, it's vertical, it cuts off the top of George Washington's head. This one can work better sometimes when you have a wider picture in general, but if I click on that, you can see it fills the whole slide with the picture, and that can be just kind of a really neat feature to use, and it can make your slides just super vibrant. But it doesn't necessarily always work very well with text. So now I can start using this text box tool and insert text. So I can start making this even snazzier. And I think it is struggling with it being white, but now it's giving me suggestions. So like if I click on this over here, you can see it fades it down and changes the color to white. And I have these different layout options that I can just use, and they start looking pretty sharp. So using that Explore tool and finding layouts can be really helpful when you're making a presentation and you want it to just look pretty cool. And Google will kind of just do things for you when you're doing these searches. Now I'm going to go ahead and add another slide to this slide deck. And if I just click the plus sign without clicking on that drop down, Google always selects this click to add title and click to add text slide. And that's fine, you know, that it's kind of the standard layout, but generally speaking, again, I don't like to use that because I like to just build my own, because I just don't always fit into that idea of what a slide should look like. So instead of clicking the plus sign, if you click on the little downward pointing triangle next to the plus sign, you get to select from a bunch of different layouts. And I tend to like to use the blank layout, because then I have more control about what I put in and where. So Google works really well with integrating YouTube videos. So if I wanted to find a YouTube video to insert on the slide, I can definitely do that. So I'm going to click on this insert menu, and then I go down and click on video. Now I can search YouTube videos from right here, and this works pretty well. I actually find that it works a little bit better to go into YouTube first and find a video that you really like, and then copy and paste the URL in here and find it. But for now, let's just see what we find if we search for George Washington. So I typed in the search for George Washington and hit enter on my keyboard, and I see here's a bunch of videos that come up that talk about George Washington. And so this one's 5 minutes long. So I click on it, and then I click select. and it's going to drop that video right into my slide. Now, something that's kind of cool about this is that over on the right-hand side, these format options open automatically, and you actually have a lot of control over what happens with your video. So this video is about 5 minutes long. You can see it ends at 4:46. If I didn't want students to watch the whole thing, I can select when the video starts and when the video ends. And so when they click play in the slide, if they didn't need to see like the first 2 minutes, I can start the slide, or the video rather, at 2 minutes. And then maybe they don't need to see the end either. Maybe there's just one part of the video I really need them to focus on. And so I can have it set so that the video just starts playing 2 minutes in and then ends 4 minutes in, and that's all they see. And another really neat thing about embedding videos from YouTube into Google Slides is that it gets rid of all the noise around it, right? We don't see any other lists for recommended videos. We don't see the comments. We don't see any of that stuff. When I play this video, it's not going to play ads. So kind of a nice idea to embed the videos in here, just if for no other reason for that. We do have a few more options here. If I want the video to just start playing when the kids get to the slide, I can click autoplay while presenting. Word of warning about this one: if you do that and you have your Google slideshow embedded into a Canvas page and the kids open up Canvas, that video will start playing right away. And sometimes if it's like loud or there's music or something, I know this has happened to me. I've opened a page and it's like, where is this music coming from? So just know that when you do that and you embed it in Canvas, it will launch right away there too. So something to keep in mind there. You may not want audio at all, and so you can turn that down. And then these are just, sizing position features, which you can do just as easily by grabbing the handles in the corner and sliding them to make that smaller. You can move the video anywhere on the slide that you want. So you do have some control over that there as well. So you don't have to use these. When you open this up, it gets, you can get really specific, I guess, with the size and the scale, but I think it's easier to just use these handles. So that's how you can insert a video. One of the newest things with slides is that you can now insert audio. So I'm going to actually go ahead and make a new blank slide and just show how that works. Unfortunately, at this point, I still haven't found a way. I don't think it's possible to record audio, but you can insert audio files that are already created. So if I click insert here and select audio, it's going to open my drive automatically. And what's kind of nice is it goes through my drive and it finds the audio files that I already have. And they do have to be in certain formats. I think WAV files work and MP3 works. So I'll just grab one of these. It doesn't really matter. And when I insert one of these files, it just puts that tiny little speaker icon in there. But again, we have all of these playback options over on the right-hand menu that open automatically. So by default, the audio will start playing on click, or you can have the audio start playing automatically when students open the slide. Again, this is where I've gotten myself into real trouble because I embedded a slideshow in Canvas. And right on the home page, I selected the music to start playing automatically. And so whenever somebody got to my Canvas page, the first thing that happened is they got blasted by this loud classical music. And it's not easy to turn it off, right? Because they're just looking at this page. So something to keep in mind if you select automatically is that's going to happen if you embed it into other platforms. So it might just be better to keep it on click, but just want to put that out there. You can have the audio play in a loop if you wanted to keep it going over and over, adjust the volume. And then this one's kind of neat. If I deselect that, it means that it will play the song throughout the entire presentation. It won't stop after the slide changes. A lot of these other settings are just for moving it around. You can move this little speaker icon anywhere. If you do want the thing to play automatically, I mean, you can make the speaker icon super duper tiny so that nobody can hardly even see it, and then it'll play automatically. But again, just be aware. Ooh, it turned it upside down. That's fine. Just be aware that it will go. So that's how we can insert audio into our slides, and those just make for a nice little presentation when you're including multimedia and different things like that. And if you are Canvas users and you embed this in your Canvas page, it can be really nice because you don't have to go in there into Canvas and update it all the time. Just updating on this slide deck will also update it when you embed it into Canvas. So that's pretty neat. I know some people like to put like a daily schedule up there and they're just updating the slide as they go. So kind of a neat option there for presentation tools. And that is kind of what Slides was really made for, but it can do so much more. So I want to kind of shift gears now and take a look at how we can use this more for student projects. So I'm going to click on the plus sign and open up a new slideshow. And I can go to slides.google.com, or another really slick shortcut is if I type slides.new and then hit enter on my keyboard, it will automatically open a new slideshow for me that I don't have that extra step of going through and picking which format or which, it's just setting up a blank slideshow. It just does it for me right away. So here I have this new presentation, and I'm just kind of waiting for the wheel to stop spinning. It sounds like the name of a soap opera or something. As the wheel spins, we'll wait for that to go. Because the first thing I really want to do is make sure that I name this file. Boy, the wheel is spinning. Maybe I'm going to close this one. try to improve my speed just a little here. Thanks for bearing with me. Maybe I should just title all my webinars As the Wheel Spins. There we go, finally. Okay, so I'm just going to call this like sample student project for webinar. And just, we always want to make sure that we name these files, because otherwise you end up with so many untitled files and it's just a mess. And as you can see right here, it automatically set that formatting for me, and it's like, no, Google, I don't want that format. So you can just go ahead and delete those. And here's where things get really crazy. By default, it always has the slides this shape, but you're not stuck with that. So if you go into File and then go down to Page Setup, you're actually able to make the slides any size that you want. So you can see this is the default size that we always have. But if I click on that and then select Custom, I can choose any size for my slides. So if I want to have standard paper size, I can set the size as 8.5 by 11 and click Apply. And you'll notice the slide now is the size of a piece of paper. And one thing that always happens with slides when you change the size like that is that it makes it look really small. Don't worry about that too much, because over here, this icon, this zoom icon, will let you zoom in, and so you can make it bigger and see and have a larger workspace. So one thing that's really neat for student projects on Google Slides is they have so much control over what they put in here and where it goes. So one really neat little project that you can use for, closing things out or whatever is to have a student newspaper or a news article that shows that they understood the concept they did. It's just a really nice way to close things out. So earlier, before this, I was working on just a newspaper example of how this can kind of look, and I'm going to pull that in now, and then I'll kind of show you how I built it. So I didn't make it too far, but you can see, I'm going to close the themes here, maybe, there we go. And again, I can zoom in. So I can put in a text box just with the title of my newspaper, and then have the headline here. And these are all just separate text boxes. I can include images, and I got this image from the Explore tool. I can have call outs, so I can have speech bubbles, things like that. And this is just really neat for the kids because they can manipulate this in so many different ways. So I'm going to go back to my project and start by inserting a text box. So this little thing with the T in it, that's the text box icon. And when that's selected, I can click and drag. And then I can type my text in here. So, we'll call this daily newspaper. And then I can, of course, center this, all of the things that I can do in any text application, really. I can change the font size. I can make it bold. I can use this tool right here to create a border. And so that makes it really kind of stand out. I've worked with teachers before who have used this in projects where they're like closing out history assignments, stuff like that. So they're reporting on like Boston Tea Party. They're creating these newspapers to describe events that have happened. And that just can be so cool. Now, just like I showed you before with the Explore tool, I can click on that and then search for images. So if we were doing, say, Boston Tea Party, I can search for that and then click images. And then there's a great one. So I can click the plus sign. And a nice thing about this is that these images that come up for the students, they're not protected by copyright. So any of these images students are able to put into their presentations. I can shrink that down, or their project rather. And then over on this side, I can put in a text box for a title. He dumped into harbor. And resize. Maybe too big. And then I can put another text box below where I can start typing about the article. And it's just so neat because there's so many different things that the kids can do to manipulate this and to move it around. You can actually even share a template with them, and then kids can make the adjustment there. Kids do really like to use these call outs like I showed in my previous example. And so they're able to do, you know, these speech bubble type things. So I've had projects before where kids will put like 3 images in a row and have like this mini comic that they create. Another cool thing is the line tool. You can select a scribble line, and then students are actually able to just straight up draw in here. So like just a ton of options with student projects. And I've seen some really neat stuff when kids are working with, you know, final reports, stuff like that. They just have so many more options to work with here than they would just with a word processing document. So kind of neat. I'm sure you can think of ideas for where to take that, but I've just seen a lot of teachers have a lot of success with using that and kind of moving away from the word processing. Now, another really neat thing that you can do in slides is I'm going to go ahead and put in another text box here. And then we'll just go with the newspaper theme for right now. So we can say, you know, newspaper sections. And what sections do we have here? Like local, sports, weather, I don't know. And what's neat here is that if I create a new slide, come on, there we go. I can link to other slides in the slide deck. So if I want to create a link here, I have that highlighted. One of my very favorite keyboard shortcuts is to hold the control button on the keyboard and press the letter K, and that will open up a link. And then I can link to any slide in the presentation. So if I click on this, I can link it to slide 2 and click apply. And now that's a hyperlink that'll take me to the next slide if I'm viewing this slideshow. So then I can have another page in my slide deck, and if I click on that link, it'll land me there. And so maybe if I wanted to keep going with this, I could make a slide for sports and a slide for weather, and it would link all through that. And then when kids are looking at this, it's going to link them to the section of the newspaper that they'd want to go. So just kind of a neat little option for a project there is to use the hyperlinks to link to different slides in the presentation itself, which can be really neat for kids. Another thing I wanted to show you that you can use slides for is to actually use them to help students complete assignments and work. So I'll start just by showing you one example that I was kind of working on earlier. This is an example from a first grade math homework assignment actually, but I'm sure if you teach other grade levels, you can think of adaptations for this. So what I've done here is I've actually set up this table and set that table as the background. And why I've set it as the background is when that table's in the background, the kids really cannot erase it. Well, they could erase it, but it would take a lot of work. So I've included this little audio file. And when I shared my screen with you all, I didn't check the box to share computer audio. But if I play this, it just reads the directions really briefly, and it says something like click and drag the shape into the correct column. So we have two columns, rectangles and squares, other shapes. And if I were to share this with students in Canvas through the Google LTI or through Google Classroom, they would each have their own copy. And then they would be able to take these shapes on the side and click and drag them into the proper category. So here, this one clearly would fit into the rectangle and square category. And notice I'm just clicking and dragging it, and the students can do this too. So there's other shapes, because that's it's open there, so it's not a rectangle. This one is just a square that's turned, and then there's a trapezoid. So if I were the student, I'd be able to just click and drag those into the proper categories. And then if it were in Canvas LTI and they finished it, you'd be able to look at that snapshot of the slide deck and see where they moved the shapes. If you were doing this type of thing in Classroom, you would be able to open that up and also see where the students slid those different images. So I want to show you now how I did this, because setting this up, there's a few steps to it, but it's kind of neat if you're just looking for something like that, you know, moving around the shapes, manipulating it in that way. It works great for word sorts, that kind of thing too. You can also use text boxes and have students, you know, filling in the blank, things like that. So in order to do this, you start with a new slide deck. And again, we've got the spinning wheel going. Still spinning. As the wheel spins, here we go again. Come on, Google. You can do it. So close. Oh, being so patient, thank you. So we'll just go ahead and call this rectangles and squares. Just to differentiate it from the last one that I made. And again, you'll notice this is just such a recurring theme here. It gives me this format that it really wants me to use, and I really don't. So I click on the lines outside of those text boxes, and I delete them. Now, I'm going to want to change the size again. So I click on File and go down to Page Setup. And I just tend to like the custom 8.5 by 11 standard paper size. I can click Apply, and we'll close that out. Now, to import a background, you have to create an JPEG, an actual image file. So it'd be really super sweet if we could just import a PDF. At this point, that doesn't work. So I can show you what I did here. I actually just created a table with Google Docs right here. And then one neat thing that we have on our computers is the snipping tool. And if you haven't used the snipping tool before, it is really fabulous. And I'm going to actually shrink this down just a little bit so I can see my table. Maybe, come on, catch up with me. There we go. So now I've got the whole thing. And over in the lower left corner in my Windows menu is where the snipping tool lurks. And it is just such a useful tool. I use it all the time. So I click on that snipping tool, and it wants me to make a new snip. So I click on New, and then I am just able to draw a box around what I want. And basically what this is doing is taking a picture of just that. So now I have this, and I'm going to save it. And we'll just call it Rectangle Table. And the one thing that you'll really want to make sure that you do is just remember where it's saving. Mine is saving into the Downloads folder, but just keep a note of where that is. You know, you might want to make sure you have it sent to a destination where you can easily find this later. It's going to be a PNG file, which is fine. I'm going to go ahead and click Save. Now I'm able to come back to my slide, and I'm going to zoom back in. I lowered it so I can see my whole table size. Oh, and by the way, to shrink and enlarge Chrome windows, shrinking is Control minus, and enlarging is Control plus. So again, really quite a useful keyboard shortcut. So now I'm going to import that image as a background. So I click where it says background, and I click choose image. And I'm going to want to upload this image into my slideshow. So I click browse. And then I have my rectangle table there. And then we'll just say done. Hopefully this works. There it is. And so now I have that table set as my background where the students could start using that to drag and drop the different images. But how do we get the images in there? Well, we can use the same technique, and that is to use that snipping tool and capture snips of, in this case, the different shapes. So like I told you, I actually got that from a first grade math worksheet. So we'll go ahead and pull that up. My son's in first grade, so this is actually something I was working on with him. So I just pulled these shapes from right here, and we can take snips of each of those shapes, just like I did before. And again, that's in the Windows menu, and you go to Snipping Tool. I actually still have the Snipping Tool open, so if I click on that, it will show the last thing that you snipped. Don't let that bother you. Just click on New. And then same thing, you click and drag to capture that image that you want, and then click Save, and just keep note of where it goes. And we'll just call this, I did this earlier, but we'll just call this one Trapezoid 2. And then click Save. And then back in the slideshow, you can click on the Insert Image, and we're going to upload that. When it gets there, I'm going to find my Trapezoid 2. And I can actually just go ahead and put this, zoom out just a little. I can actually just go put this on the margins. And so when students get this and they see the whole long list of these shapes or whatever it is that you want them to organize, it'll be over in the margins, and then they can click and drag it into the proper category. So kind of a neat little trick there if you want to build things that are more interactive and kids can move around and then show their understanding of these types of concepts that you're trying to teach them. So it's just kind of a neat little trick. One thing to note when you do this though, and I think this is really important, is if I set the background and my PDF had like just an enormous amount of text to it, a screen reader is not able to read that text because it's placed in there as an image. So if you were going to do that and it was just an entire 8.5 by 11 page full of nothing but text, you'd probably want to record yourself reading the text and then create an MP3 and have that insert audio so that students could click on the insert audio and have the file read to them, because otherwise screen readers won't be able to read that. And it might even be really helpful to do that separately for, say, like each paragraph or whatever. And so a tool that you can use to just record audio, you can use the voice recorder, and that will take MP3s, so that works. Or if you wanted to get really fancy with it, you could record audio with WeVideo. But just a thought that if you had a lot of text there and wanted to have it accessible, it's not compatible with a screen reader, so you'd want to have some sort of audio there. The last thing I really wanted to show you with slides, and this is pretty cool too, is what you can do to save the slide as a PDF. So you can import it into WeVideo, which I just mentioned, and then you can create a video out of your slideshow. So we'll do this kind of quickly, but I think it's worth running through, and then we'll turn this over to some questions. So I'm going to just click on my Google Slides webinar. And the first thing that I need to do to make this compatible with WeVideo is to convert it to a PDF. And if you've never converted a Google Slides file to a PDF before, I swear they just hid it. It's hidden. But what you do is you can just click the printer icon as the wheel spins once more. So when the wheel finishes spinning, it's going to create this preview for me, and it's going to want to send it to my home printer here. But I don't want to do that. I want to export this thing as a PDF. So if I click on this, the destination, and select Save as PDF, and I want all these pages, then this is going to convert this Google Slides file into a PDF that I'm going to be able to import into other platforms. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And you can see it gives it a really, really useful name right there, but I'm going to call it Google Slides Webinar PDF, and click Save. And now I can launch WeVideo. And for those of you that don't know, WeVideo is the video editor. It's an online video editor that the district has purchased, and all students and staff have access to a premium account. Just make sure that when you go into WeVideo in the first place, and I'm already in, so I'm going to log out real quick just to make sure that you all see this. If it's the first time that you've signed in, and after that too, make sure you sign in with Google while you're signed into your district account so that you can get the premium license, and the premium version is just so much better. So I'm going to just show this really quickly. I'm going to click on create a video. This is just kind of to demonstrate what you can do here, and that's fine. Okay. And now I click import, and what I'm going to find is the PDF file that I've just created. There it is, Google Slides Webinar PDF. And I double click on that to import it. And this will take a few seconds to process, but once it does, I'm going to have my Google Slides in here, and I can click and drag them down into my video tracks, and then put my voice over them and create a little video of my slides. So I'm going to go ahead, and this filters down so I can only see the photo, the images. And so here we have the 2 slides from my webinar. If I click and drag this first one, I can record audio over this, and then when I'm done with recording audio, I can adjust the length of the time that that slide shows. And then if I want to, like I say, if I want to record audio, I can click narrate and then record, and it's going to give me a quick countdown, and then I can, read the things that are on the slide. And when I'm done, I just click the check mark, and then I have this nice little, click the stop sign, then click the check mark, and I have this nice little audio file that will go with my slide as soon as it's done processing. And you can see there's the audio loading right down there. And you can create a video out of your slides, which can be really useful when presenting to students, especially now that we don't have them in front of us in our classroom. So that's just really quick how you can save as a PDF and then import these slides into WeVideo so you can use your slides in just a different way to present to kids. So some different options that we have there. So in this webinar, we really talked about how to use slides for presentations, for projects, for students completing work, and then also how to save as a PDF and import into WeVideo to create WeVideo shows. And at this point, I kind of walked you through all that I wanted to, and I'd love to turn this over to questions if you have any, or anything that I could clarify, or things that you've been wondering about slides that I didn't cover here, or if you just want to share how you think you could use this with your kids in the next few weeks or next year. Adding Pear Decks to slides. Yeah, awesome question. Thank you for that one. So Pear Deck is an add-on. And if I click on the add-ons here and go down to Pear Deck for Google Slides, and I open the Pear Deck add-on, Pear Deck gives you a lot, needs my permission, gives you a lot more options that you can do with your slides. And it's another way to make them really interactive. And we have been, my department has been offering Pear Deck courses, and I'd highly encourage you to sign up for one of those. They are really informative, and you can see I have to allow all these permissions. It just shows you how to make really nice interactive slideshows, and it's just right there in that add-ons menu. And we all currently have the Pear Deck add-on installed. And I'm not going to walk you through all of the things for setting up the Pear Deck presentation now, but you can see there's lots of different ways that you can ask students questions with it. You can create draggable stuff. You can add audio. This says premium right now. We're able to use the premium version through the end of the school year now. So Pear Deck is a really nice way to go, and I definitely recommend going to our Pear Deck sessions or just spending a little time playing with it on your own and seeing what kind of thing you can come up with. On our website, we also have some information about Pear Deck, and you can watch past recordings of those Pear Deck sessions as well. So yeah, great question. Thanks for asking me that. It should already be in that add-ons menu. Thanks. Anything else we're wondering about slides right now? Can you revisit making sure the audio is not turned on automatically in Canvas? Absolutely, happy to do it. It is like the worst. So let me go back to my slideshow that has the audio in it, if I can remember where that is. Oh gosh, there it is. So if I click on the little speaker icon, it should open up format options automatically. If you don't see that, you can click format options here. Then I open the audio playback, and the setting that you want is that it'll start playing on click, and that is the default setting. If you click this open or start playing automatically, as soon as the slide deck opens up, no matter where it is, even embedded into Canvas, it'll start launching into that audio. So more than likely, you're going to want to start playing on click, and then it won't be a problem. Yeah, thanks for that question. Can you show again where to insert a YouTube video? Oh, I'd be happy to. So we'll just go ahead and use this one. You can insert a YouTube video into any Google slide deck. You click on this insert menu and select video. And then here, earlier today, I was searching for kittens because why not? Kittens are cute. So if I like this video, I can click here and click select. And then it will automatically put the little thumbnail for the video in my slideshow. I can make this bigger or smaller, slide it anywhere I want onto the page. I have the option to select when the video starts and when the video ends. So, you know, if I only wanted the kids to watch a small part of it, I could have it start at 4 minutes and then end at 5 minutes. Here's another place where I can select this autoplay while presenting. There are some times where you want that setting, but again, I think it's just really important to remember that if you do that, it'll autoplay when presenting no matter what. So if kids are opening up your Canvas page and that's selected, it's going to launch right into the video. So just kind of keep that in mind. You can select to mute audio if you only want the kids to have the visuals. So that's where those settings are there for the YouTube videos. I personally tend to like to go to youtube.com first and find the video there and then copy the URL. I can show you what I mean by this. So I can go to youtube.com first, and then let me just hopefully find the first video. Y'all get to see the type of videos I like to watch here in just a minute when the wheel stops turning. The Goonies are back. I don't know if you like 80s movies as much as me. Josh Gad, who is Olaf in the Frozen movies, brought the entire Goonies cast back together. So obviously this should go in my slideshow. Okay, and now I can just click share. And I copy, oh my goodness. Copy that URL, and then I can take that back into my slideshow. And here I can have more than one video per slide, so I can insert the video. And here I can just paste the URL directly and it'll bring me exactly to that video I wanted. Click on it, click select, and then I can move that around wherever I want on my slide. Looking at the chat, another question. If I wanted to add a Google slide to Seesaw, what link would I send my kids? So from Seesaw itself, and Seesaw, for those of you that don't know, it's kind of like an LMS for younger students, kindergarten, first, second grade especially. But in Seesaw itself, let me go ahead and pull that up. you can actually set an activity so that you bring in that Google slide, and it's kind of funny because the link, when you put in the link, it looks like it didn't work, but if the kids click on the link, then they're able to get there. So if I go ahead and add an activity, and we'll need to make sure that you change the sharing permissions, I do believe. So we'll copy that link, done. Now back into Seesaw, we're going to create something new, and we want to add multimedia, and then I can now upload the Google Drive file. And there it is. And then I can click on the check mark, and my students will have that example there in Seesaw. All right. So we're closing in on the end here. Any other Google Slides questions or other questions you're wondering about, or embedding these into other programs or LMS? Happy to answer anything that you're wondering right now. At this point too, we've been together for almost 50 minutes. I know you're going to be trying this, so if you feel like you've gotten everything you want out of this, please, please, please feel free to copy and paste that link to get the clock hour, and then you can head out and get on with your day too. Can you take a PowerPoint and change it into Google Slides? Yes, absolutely. You can totally do that. So let me see if I can find a PowerPoint, or I suppose I could just create one really quick. And PowerPoint is one of those tools that I just haven't used in a while. But let me see if I can just create one super quick here. And then this is one where you can import it into Google Drive and then convert the file into a Google slide file. So let's see. So much loading time. Thank you for bearing with me on all of this. Okay, so we've got this PowerPoint presentation, enable editing. It's called Copy of CS for All, Google Symposium. So now let's see if I can go to my Drive. And if I import the files into my Drive, then when I go to open them, I'll have the opportunity to convert them into Google Slides. Some of the formatting won't pull itself over, just to keep that in mind, but a lot of it will. It actually works pretty successfully. So I can upload a file by clicking the new button in Google Drive. I wonder if I can just search for .PowerPoint. Oh, of course not. It's going to be hard for me to find it, I think. Maybe in my documents folder. Thanks for bearing with me on this one. Ooh, there's one. So upload to Canvas PowerPoint. And if I click on that, I can look at this whole thing, or at the top, I've got this open with, and I can click on that and then select Google Slides. And we'll see what the formatting looks like when that gets opened. Conversion's taking a while. Now I get rainbow spinnings, more spinnings up top. I think this may have only been one slide anyway. But you can see the background stayed the same, the font text stayed the same. So that's how you do it. Import those PowerPoints into Google Drive and then just select Open With and then Google Slides, and it'll run the conversion for you. And this one actually worked pretty well. I know some of the formatting won't always pull in, but a lot of it does. Awesome, thanks. Anything else anyone has?